some of my favorite artists, influences for guitar music in general, I tend to harken back always to the time of the guitar heroes. You know, that hit me really hard when I was young. Guys like Stevie Ray Vaughan, Leslie West, Eric Clapton, obviously the ones everyone loves, Jimmy Page, David Gilmour. Those were the guys to me that really hit hard, and they never left. You know, but I'm always listening to music. I'm always trying to find new artists. I'm always trying to dig back and find things I've never heard from the heyday. So I always have my ear to the ground. I really think that, to sum up, my influences and the people that really inspire me, it's anyone that means it, anyone that plays with their heart and soul. That, to me, means everything. The human aspect, the live aspect, that is the influence. The first gig I went to as a punter was probably one of the most influential gigs I've ever seen. It was actually ZZ Top and Kiss with Kenny Wayne Shepherd as the opener. This was at Alpine Valley Music Theater, which was directly where I grew up. Like, that was right next to my house. And I remember we walked into the venue, and it was a big amphitheater, and we had the grass seats. We had the cheap seats where you just sit on the grass and watch. And Kenny Wayne Shepherd walked out. And he only played 4 songs, but I remember he ended with Voodoo Child, Slight Return. And this was in 2002-ish, before I'd even started playing guitar, but I heard him play and I went, whoa, that is cool. What is that? And then I completely got my mind blown by ZZ Top, and it was one of those moments that, you know, I didn't think about that I would ever be a guitar player or be a musician yet, but that was a huge influence, and I often go back to that. And, you know, I know Kenny now too, which is a cool thing. It's kind of like a full circle thing. And it was such a cool moment to actually be there and have the music connect directly. Oh yeah. The first gig as a guitarist, the first real gig we did, I had a band with my friends, and it was a battle of the bands in the town closest to where I grew up. I remember I borrowed my buddy's Les Paul because my guitar, it was so jank and horrible. It had electronic problems, like the input jack was broken, and I had his Les Paul. And I remember before we went on, I was practicing like the songs, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna nail this. I got really confident. I was like, this is gonna be amazing. And all of our friends from school were there, everyone I knew, my parents. And when we got on the stage, we were playing, and I was just the guitar player, I wasn't singing or anything, and I could not get myself to face the audience. So I literally had my back to the crowd the whole time, and I remember people were like yelling at me and stuff, and I was like, I wouldn't look. I was just facing the drummer, you know, I couldn't look. And we had video footage of it, and we watched it that night, and I remember saying to myself, dude, you were so nervous you couldn't even face the crowd, not once. And I remember it was one of those moments that, you know, after I got off stage, it was like, it was insane. It was an insane feeling. But I remember I was so nervous that I couldn't even face the crowd. So talking about my style, my technique, and the pickless thing. So first things first, I'm left-handed, right? So I write with my left hand, and I originally picked up the guitar as a lefty would. And my first guitar teacher, when I went in for my first lesson, he goes, hey man, you're holding that guitar the wrong way, you gotta flip it. And I was like, really? So I flip it, and I started playing with my thumb. And he said, now, that's cool, but if you want to be a real guitar player, you got to learn how to play with a pick, because all guitar players play with a pick, and I had no idea. So I went, okay, cool. So I started playing with a pick, but I always felt as if my picking hand was chasing my fretting hand. And I was very intricate with my fretting hand, and I felt like, oh yeah, that's good. But it was always this hand, you know? It was like that video of the guy smacking his hand, like, ah. So I played with a pick for about 6 years, and I got pretty good at it, but it never felt right. So when I was really getting into the blues, really trying to find my own sound and discover who I was as a guitar player, I was listening to guys like Albert King, Jeff Beck, Derek Trucks, And I noticed the one common thread about a lot of the guys I loved, like Albert Collins and these blues guys, they were using their fingers. And there was something special about the way that things sounded, the tone you got on an electric overdriven guitar when you use your fingers. It almost had more depth to me and dimension than just the straight picking. And also you could do 2 at a time, 3, 4 at a time. And there was almost like, it was like an orchestra in your right hand. And I started experimenting with it. And at first I remember I put the pick in between my finger and started to go like that. And then after a while I'd put it on the amp. And then it was to the point where I was like, I don't need the pick, I can just do it like this. And I remember it gave me a whole new lease on guitar playing. It was to the point where I would play the old licks I'd been playing forever, but when I played them without a pick, and I played them with a certain aggression or inflection, they would all sound different. And I was like, man, that's cool. So I can do the stuff I was doing, but I start to incorporate this pickless technique, and I fell in love with it. And people would come up to me, you know, after the word was out that I was playing with my fingers, and they'd be like, hey, it's the no pick guy, you know? And it was just so weird because for me, when I stopped playing with a pick, it was so personal. I never ever thought that that would become, I guess, something I'm trademarked with, is not playing with a pick. But it has now, and it's just kind of shocking to me because when I did it, it was purely for the sound, for the feel, and then it just kind of grew on a life of its own. But I suggest anybody that, you know, is either maybe in a, you know, in a stump in their guitar playing, or, you know, mess around with it, because even if you are a pick guy, incorporating that pickless technique, man, it can give you some really cool tones. And for me now, I've just chased it completely down the rabbit hole, and I love it. I'd never want to change it. My advice for any aspiring artists, musicians, guitar players is play what you love, and always, always be real with yourself on your progress and what you really want to accomplish. A lot of things that I ran into when I was coming up playing guitar was I was always comparing myself to someone else. And music, as much as people want to make it a sport, is not a sport. Music and art are very, very personal, and honestly, I cannot see them as this guy's better than this guy, or I like this better than this. I think that it's all such a personal style and taste, and once I understood that it is not a competition, and it's just me, you know, trying to achieve the sound in my head, trying to achieve the playing I want to play, that's when it kind of got a lot easier, and I wasn't so hard on myself. So anyone that's coming up right now, the first thing I should say is just stop comparing yourself to other people, because you are one of a kind, no matter how amazingly technically capable you are or not. You are yourself. So the first thing is just go with that, trust your gut, and play what you love. Because I think that the big thing for me was I have a lot of people that when I was coming up playing guitar that said, you can't play like that. You know, you can't play with without a pick, or you'll never get there with this, you'll never do that. But if you keep pushing and you're on your own path, those are the things that at the end of the day are gonna take you further. You know, believe in yourself, trust in your gut instinct, and just have fun with it. Because playing music, and music should be fun, it should be, never should be a struggle, or, you know, it should always be something you love. For me, practicing, playing guitar, I'm thinking about it constantly. It's like a mouse running in the back of my brain. I'm always thinking about guitar, or, you know, what if I did this? What if I did this? And I was one of those guys that when I first started playing guitar, I started just like anyone else. I was playing 10 minutes, you know, trying to learn a riff, but the bug caught me so hard. Within 6 months, I was playing guitar an hour a day, 2 hours on the weekends. And then it got to the point when I was really kind of getting sucked into the blues, and, you know, the Guitar Hero thing, I was doing 4 hours, 5. By the time I was 18 years old, I was locking myself in my bedroom 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day. I was so hyper-focused on learning how to play the songs and the style and the influence of these guys. It was like all day, the only thing, I'd wake up, I'd pick up the guitar, and I would play it until I went to bed that night. And that has never really left me, even though now, you know, my life is completely different from then. Up until I was about 25 years old, I was playing guitar all day, every day. And, you know, scraping by whatever money I had to do. If I had to do lessons or, you know, if I had to do odd jobs, whatever I had to do to make the money to survive, great. But it was all about the guitar. And it's funny because I used to have it set up where, you know, I'd pick up the guitar and I'd do an hour of my picking hand. And then I'd do my hour on this hand, and then I incorporate them for an hour, and then I do my bends, my vibratos, scales, chords, jamming along to songs, writing songs, and then I do like my theory. And it was like this extensive, crazy schedule that I kept for years. And it was never, ever, when I look back at it, a toll or boring. I loved every second of it. I loved just learning and focusing into the guitar. When I moved to California the end of 2010, there was a year there where I played guitar maybe about 15 hours a day, all day, every day, because I was in the moment. I was fully focused in. And now, switching gears to now when I've been touring, I've been on the road now since January, and there's not a ton of time, you know, with all the traveling and everything. There's not a ton of time. I've been to, I think, over 20 countries this year. And now it's like, I get there, I play, okay, what am I doing? And then I gotta leave. So I'm so glad that I was able to put in a lot of time then. But I think it's also a fact of, it's always in my mind, so I'm always thinking about it. But now, you know, I don't have the, I can't sit on the couch and play for 10 hours a day, but you know, it's okay. You know, it's a different time in my life, and being able to play and tour and meet so many awesome people. But it is really funny still when young guys go, so how many hours do you practice a day now? And I'm like no time, man. But you know, when I go home though, I'm always sitting there on the guitar. The best musical moment I've ever had, well, I've had many, man, where like life-changing moments. One of the coolest moments is when I jammed with Leonard Skinner. I jammed Sweet Home Alabama with them. We were on tour with Skinner. We were in Germany. We were playing an arena to about 14,000 people. And I went out there and I jammed Sweet Home Alabama, and it was like, it was one of those moments where I thought I was like flying. I was like, what is happening? This is insane. You know, I've had great musical moments, just even if they're small things, you know, meeting my heroes, or, you know, jamming with a hero, or, you know, meeting a younger dude that reminds me of me and being like, whoa, like this guy's got it, you know, and seeing that and, you know, being on the other side of that coin, that's a super cool moment. I've had a lot of bad moments though too. You know, there's been everything from gear breakdowns. Like we played this festival called Hellfest. And I remember we were in the first song and I'm riffing out, and my strap button pops off the guitar. Not just the strap, the whole button. And my other guitar is way on the other side of the stage, so I'm sitting there trying to play. And we're playing this huge festival, and I'm like, what is happening? How did that just happen? Where did that come from? Or, you know, I've had certain things where guitars have been broken, you know, things like that, where you just go, oh, you know, oh my God, you know. You know, always with travel, there's always comedy, man. There's always something to go wrong, you know. Either a guitar gets lost or a flight is missed or whatever, you know. Thankfully, though, there hasn't been anything too crazy, horribly, that went wrong. I've never been electrocuted yet, knock on wood. You know, I have a lot of other things that hopefully will never happen. Do I have any ideas for a new app that guitar players could use? Okay, so this is like getting techie now. I think that guitar players now, something needs to change in a focus from, you know, we're so used to like YouTube and play along apps. I don't know what it is, but there needs to be more of a, maybe like I don't know, like the only thing that I can think of like in an app or a technology world is something where us musicians, we find each other and we play together, right? We need like a dating app for musicians. So it's like, okay, I live in York and I play guitar, but my buddy lives in Manchester. Or, okay, so we have these two guys and they're on the app and they can find musicians anywhere in the area. Everyone signs up for the app. I'm sure there's something like it already. But I think that we need to have more of an app that's focused on the support for real music, the support for getting people together in the same room to jam, starting bands, keeping the tradition of what we love about this alive. I think there's enough things online now about the advancement of the technique, and you could go on YouTube and find a 4-year-old shredding better than anyone we've ever seen. We need more now that is going to harbor the growth of actual, live music and getting people to do the thing we want to do, which is play.